Rain lashed against the cracked sidewalks, drenching everything in sight. People hurried past with umbrellas, shielding themselves from the storm, their eyes fixed forward as though the world outside their own lives didn't exist. But crouched near a flickering streetlight, beneath the awning of a closed bakery, sat a thin girl no older than 16. Her clothes clung to her small frame, torn at the edges, and her hair stuck wetly to her face. She pressed her knees to her chest, trying to conserve the last bit of warmth in her trembling body. Her name was Amelia. For months now, the streets had been her home. Life had dealt her a cruel hand, her mother had passed away suddenly, and with no father in the picture and no relatives willing to take her in, Amelia had been left to fend for herself. She scavenged scraps, slept in alleys, and fought silently against the gnawing hunger that seemed to hollow her out a little more each day. As the storm intensified, Amelia noticed a figure huddled nearby, a frail old man, shivering violently. His gray beard was tangled, and his clothes were so thin it was a wonder he was still alive in the cold. He clutched his stomach, groaning softly. Amelia recognized the sound instantly: hunger. The same kind that burned her insides like fire. For a moment, she hesitated. She had found half a loaf of stale bread earlier that day, a rare stroke of luck, and it sat carefully wrapped in a piece of newspaper inside her tattered bag. That bread was supposed to be her dinner, her lifeline to make it through the night. If she gave it away, there would be nothing left for her. But as Amelia looked at the man's shaking hands and sunken eyes, something inside her shifted. She knew too well what it felt like to be invisible, to be abandoned by the world. Quietly, she reached into her bag, pulled out the bread, and knelt beside him. "Here," she whispered, pressing it into his hands. "Eat this, please." The man's eyes widened with disbelief. "Child, you need this more than I do." Amelia shook her head, forcing a smile even as her stomach screamed in protest. "I'll be fine. You need it now." Tears welled in the man's eyes as he clutched the bread to his chest. He began eating slowly, each bite filled with gratitude. Amelia watched silently, shivering from the rain and hunger, but feeling a warmth bloom in her heart. What she didn't know was that someone had been watching. Across the street, sitting in a sleek black car, a man in his early 40s had witnessed the entire exchange. His name was Daniel Carter, the CEO of a powerful corporation in the city. To the world, Daniel was known for his wealth, his sharp suits, and his ruthless business acumen. But behind the polished image was a man who had once been poor himself, who had grown up in a single-room apartment with little to eat. Though he had climbed the ladder to unimaginable success, he had never forgotten the days of hunger and despair. As he watched Amelia sacrifice the little she had for a stranger, something stirred deep inside him. In her selflessness, he saw a reflection of his own late mother, the woman who had taught him that kindness was the only true wealth. The next morning, Amelia awoke on the cold ground, weak from hunger. The storm had passed, but her body ached, and her stomach twisted painfully. Still, she forced herself up, ready to search for scraps. Life on the streets was an endless cycle of survival. But as she stumbled down an alley, she was startled to see the old man from the night before waiting for her. He looked better, still frail, but steadier. And beside him stood Daniel Carter, dressed in a dark overcoat, his presence commanding yet strangely gentle. "Amelia," the old man said softly, "this gentleman wants to speak to you." Amelia blinked in confusion, wary of strangers. "Why, I didn't do anything wrong." Daniel stepped forward, kneeling slightly to meet her eyes. "No, you didn't. In fact, what you did last night was one of the most extraordinary things I've ever seen. You gave away the only food you had, even though you were starving yourself. That kind of compassion, it's rare." Amelia looked down, embarrassed. "It wasn't extraordinary. He needed it more than me." Daniel's eyes softened. "That's exactly what makes it extraordinary." Over the next few days, Daniel arranged for Amelia to stay in a shelter he funded, ensuring she had warm meals and a safe place to sleep. But Amelia's challenges weren't solved overnight. She struggled to trust the system. Years of abandonment had taught her that promises often broke. At the shelter, some kids mocked her ragged clothes. She wanted to run back to the streets, where at least she understood the rules of survival. But Daniel didn't give up. He visited often, sometimes bringing books, sometimes just sitting with her and listening. He discovered she had a passion for drawing. Her notebook, though crumpled and smudged, was filled with sketches of people, streets, and dreams she dared not voice aloud. One evening, Amelia finally confided in him. "I don't think I'll ever be good enough for anything. People look at me and see trash. Someone who doesn't belong." Daniel's heart tightened. He leaned forward, speaking with conviction. "Amelia, I started with nothing too. People looked at me the same way. But you know what changed my life? Someone believed in me. And now, I believe in you. You're not trash. You're a fighter. And one day, the world will see your worth." Months passed. With Daniel's support, Amelia enrolled in school. It wasn't easy. She was behind in her studies, and classmates sometimes whispered about her past. She cried more than once, tempted to give up. But Daniel reminded her of the courage she had already shown, the heart that had given bread to a stranger. Slowly, Amelia began to believe him. She worked hard, poured herself into learning, and kept drawing in every spare moment. Her teachers noticed her talent and encouraged her to pursue art seriously. Daniel, true to his word, arranged for her artwork to be displayed at a charity event hosted by his company. On the night of the event, Amelia stood nervously in a borrowed dress, her drawings framed and lit under the warm glow of the gallery. Guests admired her work, some even buying pieces. For the first time in her life, Amelia saw strangers value something she had created. Tears blurred her vision as she turned to Daniel. "I never thought this could be me." Daniel smiled, pride shining in his eyes. "This is only the beginning." But life wasn't without setbacks. A year later, Amelia received devastating news. The shelter that had housed her was losing funding and might close. Dozens of children, just like she had once been, would be back on the streets. Amelia refused to let that happen. Drawing strength from her own journey, she spoke at one of Daniel's corporate events, sharing her story with raw honesty. She described the pain of being invisible, the hunger that ate away at her, and the moment she had chosen kindness despite having nothing. Her words moved the audience to tears. Donations poured in, enough to not only save the shelter but expand it. That night, Daniel whispered to her, "You've done more than I ever could. You've given them hope." Years later, Amelia would go on to become a renowned illustrator, her work celebrated for their depth and humanity. But she never forgot her roots. She poured her success back into programs for homeless youth, ensuring that no child would feel as hopeless as she once had. At the opening of a new youth center she had helped fund, Amelia stood before a crowd, Daniel by her side like the father figure she never had. With tears in her eyes, she addressed the young faces looking up at her. "Once, I was sitting on the streets, starving and alone. I thought no one would ever see me. But one act of kindness changed everything, not mine, but his. He believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. And now, I want you to know, no matter where you come from, no matter how broken you feel, your story isn't over. You are worthy, you are capable, and sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can change a life forever." The crowd erupted in applause, but for Amelia, the real reward was the spark of hope she saw in the children's eyes, the same spark that had once been lit in hers. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice thick with emotion. "I told you, Amelia, the world would see your worth. And now, they do." Amelia smiled through her tears. "Thanks to you, they do. But more than that, thanks to kindness, they always will." And so, the story of a homeless girl who once gave away her only meal became a living testament to the power of compassion. One selfless act, born in the darkest of times, had sparked a chain of events that changed not only her life but the lives of countless others. Because sometimes, when you have nothing, the greatest gift you can give is kindness. And sometimes, kindness is the very thing that turns nothing into everything.